The medication maze nobody talks about. One of the most overwhelming daily challenges emerges from what should be a simple routine: taking medication. Margaret's kitchen counter looks like a small pharmacy exploded. 12 prescription bottles line up in front of a coffee maker, each with labels containing instructions that seem designed to confuse rather than clarify. Take with food. Take on empty stomach. Take 2 hours before meals. Take at bedtime unless you experience dizziness. Don't take with calcium. Avoid grapefruit. May cause drowsiness or insomnia. The contradictions pile up like a cruel joke, and Margaret stares at them every morning wondering how she's supposed to follow instructions that seem to cancel each other out. Her blood pressure medication needs to be taken first thing in the morning, but her stomach medication requires food, and her thyroid pill must be taken on an empty stomach an hour before eating. Her diabetes medication goes with breakfast, but her cholesterol pill works best at dinner. Her arthritis medication can upset her stomach, so it needs food, but not the same meal as her iron supplement because they interfere with each other. Margaret has become a human chemistry experiment, trying to time and space medications to avoid dangerous interactions while ensuring each one works effectively. Seniors now average 8 medications daily, transforming medication management from a simple routine into a complex coordination challenge that requires military precision and pharmaceutical knowledge most people don't possess. These aren't just prescriptions from one doctor treating one condition. Margaret sees a cardiologist for her heart, an endocrinologist for her diabetes, a rheumatologist for her arthritis, an orthopedist for her back pain, and a psychiatrist for the depression that developed after her husband died. Each specialist prescribes medications within their expertise, but nobody takes responsibility for managing the interactions between all the drugs Margaret swallows daily. Her weekly pill organizer has become the most important item in her house. She spends every Sunday afternoon sorting medications into tiny compartments marked with days and times. Morning, noon, evening, bedtime. The ritual takes 45 minutes because she double-checks each pill against the bottles, counts carefully, and reviews the timing requirements. One mistake could mean taking her blood thinner twice or missing her heart medication entirely. The weight of this responsibility sits on her shoulders constantly because she lives alone and has no backup system if she makes an error. Margaret's insurance changes which medications they cover without warning, forcing her to switch between brand names and generics that look completely different but supposedly work the same way. Last month, her insurance stopped covering her preferred diabetes medication and substituted a generic version that comes in different colored pills. The pharmacist assured her they're identical, but Margaret spent 3 weeks convinced she was taking the wrong medication because the pills looked nothing like what she'd been taking for 2 years. Medication errors among seniors living alone represent a dangerous reality that most families don't fully understand. Margaret accidentally took her morning medications twice last Tuesday because she couldn't remember if she'd already taken them. The duplicate dose of her blood pressure medication made her dizzy and nauseous for the entire day, but she didn't call anyone because she felt embarrassed about the mistake. She's developed a system of moving pill bottles from one side of the counter to the other after taking them. But on busy mornings or when she's distracted, the system breaks down. The side effects from multiple medications create a cascade of new health problems that require additional medications. Margaret's blood pressure medication causes ankle swelling, so her doctor prescribed a diuretic. The diuretic depletes her potassium, requiring a potassium supplement. The potassium supplement upsets her stomach, leading to an acid reducer. Each solution creates new problems that require pharmaceutical fixes, building a house of chemical cards that grows more unstable with each addition. The financial pressure of medication costs forces Margaret into impossible choices between health needs and other essential expenses. When her insurance stopped covering her arthritis medication, the monthly cost jumped to $347. She tried stretching the pills by taking them every other day instead of daily, but the increased joint pain made simple tasks like opening jars and climbing stairs excruciating. She eventually asked a doctor for samples and generic alternatives, but the reduced effectiveness meant accepting a lower quality of life to maintain financial stability. Margaret quietly discontinued her expensive cholesterol medication 6 months ago because the monthly cost strained her budget, and she convinced herself that her other heart medications provided sufficient protection. She hasn't told her cardiologist about this decision because she's embarrassed about the financial concerns and worried he'll lecture her about the importance of following prescribed treatments. Her sleep medication creates a particularly troubling dilemma because it helps her sleep but causes morning grogginess that increases her fall risk. She's fallen twice in the past year while getting up during the night, both times when the sleep medication made her unsteady. She's afraid to stop taking it because her insomnia was unbearable, but she's equally afraid of falling and breaking a hip. Managing medications has become Margaret's part-time job, consuming hours each week coordinating pharmacy visits, insurance approvals, doctor appointments, and timing requirements. The mental energy devoted to medication management leaves less capacity for enjoying life, maintaining relationships, and pursuing interests that could improve her overall health and happiness. Yet even as Margaret struggles with the complexity of managing her health, another challenge quietly grows in the background, one that affects her emotional well-being in ways she's only beginning to recognize: the shrinking social circle crisis. This emotional isolation creates a ripple effect that touches every aspect of daily life. Dorothy sits in her living room on Thursday afternoon and realizes she hasn't spoken to another human being since Monday morning when the grocery store cashier asked if she wanted paper or plastic bags. 3 days of complete silence except for the voices coming from her television set. She talks back to the game show hosts and news anchors, but they don't respond to her comments about the weather or her opinions about the contestants. The sound of her own voice startles her because she's gone so long without using it for actual conversation. Her address book tells the story of a social circle that has steadily contracted over the past decade. Names crossed out in black ink mark friends who moved to warmer climates or assisted living facilities. Others are crossed out in red ink, marking those who passed away. Some entries have question marks beside them because Dorothy lost touch and doesn't know if they're still alive or where they might be living now. The book that once contained 47 close friends and regular acquaintances now has 12 people she could realistically call, and half of those relationships have grown distant due to circumstances beyond anyone's control. Making new friends at 74 feels like trying to learn a foreign language when everyone around you speaks fluently. Dorothy remembers how friendships formed naturally when she was younger through work colleagues, neighbors with children the same age, and shared activities that brought people together regularly. Her workplace friendships ended when she retired 8 years ago. The neighbors she knew best moved away or passed away, replaced by younger families who wave politely but don't invite her to backyard barbecues or block parties. The book club she joined disbanded when 3 members developed health problems and 2 others moved to different states. The traditional social structures that facilitated friendships throughout Dorothy's adult life have largely disappeared, leaving her without obvious places to meet people who share her interests and values. Churches have smaller congregations with fewer social activities. Community centers offer programs, but many require physical abilities Dorothy no longer possesses or transportation she can't manage. The casual interactions that once led to deeper friendships, like chatting with other parents at school events or bonding with co-workers during lunch breaks, simply don't exist in her current life structure. Dorothy's experience reflects a broader crisis affecting millions of seniors who face the frequent loss of peers and friends. This isn't about personality differences or social preferences, but about systematic changes in how communities function and how relationships are formed and maintained as people age. The pandemic accelerated Dorothy's social isolation by breaking routines and connections that took decades to build. Her weekly coffee meetings with 3 longtime friends stopped during lockdowns and never resumed because one friend developed anxiety about public spaces, another became a caregiver for her husband, and the third moved closer to her children. Dorothy's days stretch endlessly without the anchor points that social connections provide. She wakes up with no one to call about her plans for the day. She reads interesting articles in the newspaper, but has no one to discuss them with. She watches movies that remind her of experiences she'd like to share, but her phone doesn't ring and she hesitates to call others, worried she might be interrupting their busier lives. Meals become solitary experiences where she eats while watching television, using the background noise to create an illusion of companionship. The silence becomes so complete that Dorothy sometimes turns on the radio in multiple rooms just to hear human voices throughout her house. She finds herself looking forward to telemarketing calls because they provide brief moments of interaction, even though she knows the callers don't actually care about her well-being. Physical limitations create additional barriers to maintaining existing friendships and forming new ones. Dorothy's arthritis makes it painful to drive at night, eliminating evening social activities and making her dependent on others for transportation. Her hearing loss makes group conversations difficult because she can't follow multiple people talking at once, leading her to avoid situations where she might feel confused or left out. Her reduced energy levels mean she can't keep up with friends who want to walk for exercise or spend long days at social events. The hidden barrier that keeps Dorothy from reaching out to family and friends is her fear of becoming a burden. She worries that calling her children too often will make them feel obligated to visit or spend time they don't have. She hesitates to ask friends for rides or companionship because she can't reciprocate the same level of help they provide. Her independence has always been important to her, but maintaining that independence now means accepting isolation rather than admitting she needs social connection and support. Dorothy's granddaughter lives 30 minutes away but works full-time and has 2 young children. Dorothy wants to be part of their lives but doesn't want to impose on their busy schedule. She assumes they don't have time for her and that asking to spend time together would create guilt and obligation. Meanwhile, her granddaughter assumes Dorothy prefers her independence and doesn't want to be bothered with the chaos of young children. Neither reaches out because both are trying to be considerate, creating a gap that widens over time. Community programs specifically designed to connect isolated seniors and intentional relationship building efforts can rebuild social connections that have been lost to time and circumstance. Senior centers with transportation services, intergenerational programs that pair seniors with younger volunteers, and neighborhood support networks can create new pathways to friendship and belonging for people like Dorothy who want connection but don't know how to find it. Yet even as social isolation deepens, many seniors face an even more complex challenge that strikes at the heart of their identity through his windshield as oncoming headlights create halos of blinding light against the dark November evening. The familiar drive home from his grandson's soccer game has become a test of nerves and willpower. Street signs blur into unreadable shapes. Lane markings disappear in the glare. Other cars seem to appear from nowhere, their red taillights multiplying like angry eyes in his peripheral vision. Frank grips the steering wheel tighter and drives 15 miles below the speed limit while cars pass him with obvious frustration. He knows he shouldn't be driving at night anymore, but admitting this means accepting that his independence is slipping away one ability at a time. The drive to maintain independence creates dangerous situations that seniors navigate daily, often choosing risk over the perceived loss of autonomy that comes with asking for help. Frank represents millions of older adults who recognize their declining abilities but continue dangerous activities because the alternative feels like surrendering control over their lives. The emotional stakes of these decisions extend far beyond practical concerns about transportation or daily tasks. They touch the core of adult identity and self-worth. Frank's relationship with driving mirrors his relationship with every other aspect of independence he's watched slip away over the past 5 years. Each lost ability feels like losing a piece of himself that defined his competence as an adult. Frank learned to drive at 16 and has been behind the wheel for 58 years. Driving represents freedom, spontaneity, and the ability to go wherever he wants whenever he chooses. When these abilities diminish, Frank doesn't just lose practical skills but loses identity markers that have defined him for decades. Research reveals the extent of this dangerous independence paradox, with 34% of seniors reporting concerns about their driving abilities yet continuing to drive because they lack alternatives. These aren't seniors who lack awareness of their limitations, but people who understand the risks and choose them over what feels like premature surrender of their autonomy. Frank knows his night vision has deteriorated. He knows his reaction time has slowed. He knows other drivers get frustrated with his cautious speed. But he also knows that giving up driving means depending on others for every trip to the grocery store, every doctor's appointment, and every social activity. Frank's internal negotiations with himself happen multiple times daily as he weighs his capabilities against his needs and desires. Should he climb the ladder to clean his gutters or pay someone else to do the job he's handled for 30 years? Can he manage the heavy snow shovel this winter, or should he hire the teenager next door? Each decision requires calculating not just physical safety but emotional consequences. The fear that asking for help will trigger family interventions and accelerated loss of autonomy keeps Frank from reaching out when he recognizes his limitations. He's heard stories from friends about adult children who overreacted to minor incidents, immediately moving parents into assisted living or taking away car keys after one fender bender. Frank worries that admitting he struggles with night driving will lead to losing his license entirely. Acknowledging that household tasks have become difficult might result in his daughter insisting he move to a retirement community. Frank's pride prevents him from using available resources and support systems that could help him maintain independence safely. His city offers senior transportation services, but using them feels like admitting defeat. The senior center provides meal programs, but Frank sees them as charity for people who can't take care of themselves. Home health aid services could help with household maintenance, but Frank views accepting help as evidence that he's failed to maintain the self-sufficiency that has always been central to his identity. The grocery delivery services his daughter suggested feel like giving up the autonomy of choosing his own food and maintaining control over his household. Frank doesn't recognize that using these services could actually preserve his independence by reducing risky driving trips and ensuring he has adequate nutrition without the physical strain of shopping. His focus on maintaining independence in familiar ways prevents him from adapting to new methods that could achieve the same goals more safely. Frank hides his struggles from family members until crisis situations force interventions that are more dramatic and disruptive than gradual transitions would have been. He doesn't mention the close calls while driving at night or the increasing difficulty he has reading street signs. He doesn't tell anyone about the day he got lost coming home from the pharmacy, a route he's driven hundreds of times. He doesn't admit that simple household tasks now make him nervous. The hidden danger of seniors concealing their limitations means that families often don't realize the extent of safety concerns until emergency situations reveal how much independence has been compromised. Frank's family assumes he's managing well because he doesn't complain or ask for help. They don't know about his night vision problems because he still drives to family gatherings, carefully timing his departure to arrive before dark and staying overnight when events run late to avoid night driving. The realization that transforms Frank's approach to independence comes from understanding that true autonomy means making informed decisions about when to accept help rather than stubbornly maintaining unsafe practices. Independence doesn't require doing everything yourself, but requires maintaining control over your choices and lifestyle even when those choices include accepting assistance. Gradual transitions that preserve dignity while ensuring safety, combined with open family communication about changing needs and available options, can help seniors like Frank navigate the independence paradox without sacrificing either safety or autonomy. The goal becomes maintaining the highest possible level of independence within the constraints of changing abilities rather than choosing between complete independence and complete dependence.